Most people think self-sufficiency means more animals. On half an acre, that thinking destroys farms. You're not failing because you work too little. You're failing because you chose the wrong animals. Today, I'll show you the animals that actually work on half an acre and why most people get this completely backwards. Half an acre is more than enough, but only if it's managed intentionally. Here's the hidden mistake. People choose animals emotionally. They pick what feels homesteady, what looks good on Instagram, what their favorite influencer raises, instead of what matches their space, their time, and their energy. Today, you're going to learn a different approach, less overwhelm, more food, systems that compound instead of competing. If you want calm, practical self-sufficiency without burnout, subscribe. I break this down every week so you don't have to piece it together. Let's go back. Traditional small farms were diversified, but they weren't crowded. There's a difference. Animals were chosen by function, not by aesthetics, not by what was popular, but by what each animal contributed to the system. Meat, eggs, fertilizer, pest control, land clearing. Every animal had a job, and every animal earned its place. Rabbits, ducks, bees, and fish were historically favored on limited land, not because they were exotic, but because they were efficient. They produced a lot from very little. They fit into tight spaces, and they didn't require massive infrastructure or constant inputs. Chickens became dominant later, not because they were the most efficient for small plots, but because they scaled well industrially. Factory farms could raise tens of thousands of chickens in controlled environments. Feed companies could formulate chicken feed, and the entire chicken industry became industrialized. But what works at scale often fails at home scale. You don't have climate-controlled barns, you don't have bulk feed discounts, and you don't have the economies of scale that make industrial chicken farming profitable. History already solved this problem. We just forgot the logic, and now we're relearning it the hard way. Let's talk about why most half-acre farms fail. Not because people are lazy, not because they lack commitment, but because they make predictable mistakes. First mistake, too many species at once. People get excited. They buy chickens, ducks, rabbits, goats, and bees all in the first year. They're trying to build an entire homestead overnight, and they end up overwhelmed. Different animals need different housing, different feed, different health management, different breeding schedules. It's too much to learn at once. Second mistake, feed costs underestimated. People see homesteading videos where animals forage freely and assume feed costs will be minimal. But on half an acre, there's not enough forage to sustain multiple species. You're buying feed, a lot of it, and feed costs add up fast, especially if you're raising animals that don't convert feed efficiently. Third mistake, time underestimated. Animals need daily care. Feeding, watering, health checks, cleaning, predator management. It doesn't matter how efficient the animal is if you don't have time to manage it. And on half an acre with multiple species, the time commitment compounds. Fourth mistake, predator pressure. Small plots attract predators. Foxes, raccoons, hawks, weasels, neighborhood dogs. And when you're raising vulnerable animals like chickens or ducks on limited space, predators learn fast, losses mount, and every loss is money and morale gone. Fifth mistake, emotional burnout. People start homesteading with excitement, but when systems don't work, when animals die, when feed costs exceed expectations, the emotional toll is real. They feel like they've failed, and many quit. But here's the reassurance. This isn't about intelligence, it's about alignment. Choosing animals that match your space, your time, and your reality. Not what someone else is doing, not what looks good, but what actually works for you. Every animal on this list earns its place. No filler, no animals included just because they're traditional, only animals that make sense on half an acre. Let's start. Animal 1. Chickens, the right way. Yes, chickens are on this list, but not the way most people do them. Let's start with why chickens still belong on half an acre. Eggs, consistent, reliable protein. Scrap conversion. Chickens turn kitchen scraps and garden waste into food. Compost input. Chicken manure is gold for gardens once composted. And emotional grounding. There's something about chickens that makes a homestead feel alive. They're social, they're entertaining, and they connect you to the land. So chickens aren't bad, but here's why people fail with them. First failure: too many birds. People think more chickens mean more eggs, but on half an acre, more chickens mean more feed costs, more manure to manage, more predator targets, and more chaos. 6 hens produce enough eggs for most families. 30 hens is overkill. Second failure: wrong breeds. People buy heritage breeds because they look pretty or because they want to preserve rare genetics. That's fine as a hobby, but if you need eggs, you want hybrids. Hybrids lay more consistently, they start laying younger, and they're more feed efficient. Third failure: free-range chickens on tiny lots. Free-ranging chickens on half an acre destroys your garden. They scratch up plants, they eat seedlings, they create bare patches everywhere they congregate. Confined runs work better on small land. Fourth failure: poor predator proofing. Half an acre in a suburban or rural area is predator heaven. If your chickens aren't secure, you'll lose them. Hardware cloth, covered runs, proper latches, all of it matters. Here's the correct setup for chickens on half an acre. 4 to 6 hens, that's it. No roosters unless required by law or unless you're breeding. 4 to 6 hens give you enough eggs without overwhelming your system. Confined run, not free range. A secure run with hardware cloth on all sides and overhead. This protects from predators and keeps chickens from destroying your garden. Deep litter system. Let bedding build up in the coop. Add fresh bedding on top. The chickens turn it. It composts in place. Once or twice a year, you clean it out and add it to your garden. Minimal daily labor, maximum fertility output. Hybrid layers. Breeds like ISA Browns, Red Stars, or Black Stars. These lay consistently for 2 to 3 years, then you replace them. You're not running a sanctuary, you're running a food system. Chickens aren't bad, they're just overused. Done right, they're excellent. Done wrong, they're a nightmare. On half an acre, you need to do them right, or skip them entirely. Animal 2. Rabbits. Rabbits have the best feed-to-meat conversion ratio of any livestock. Better than chickens, better than pigs, better than cattle. They turn 4 pounds of feed into 1 pound of meat. That's efficient. On half an acre where every input matters, efficiency is everything. Rabbits don't make noise. No crowing, no loud clucking, no complaints from neighbors. You can raise rabbits in suburban areas where other livestock is banned. They're invisible food security. Rabbits live in hutches, stacked hutches if you want to go vertical. You can raise a breeding trio, 1 buck and 2 does, in a space smaller than most chicken coops. And that trio can produce 40 to 60 offspring per year. That's a lot of meat from very little space. Rabbit meat is lean, it's healthy, and it's one of the most nutrient-dense proteins available. Low fat, low cholesterol, high in vitamins and minerals. If you're trying to produce healthy meat on half an acre, rabbits are the answer. During World War II, rabbits were raised in cities during food rationing. People kept them on balconies, in basements, in garages. Because rabbits are efficient. They don't need pasture, they don't need large buildings, they just need a hutch, feed, and water. Urban meat production has always relied on rabbits, not chickens, not goats, rabbits, because they work in tight spaces with minimal infrastructure. Now let's talk practical setup. A breeding trio, 1 buck, 2 does. That's all you need to start. Each doe can produce 5 to 6 litters per year. Each litter averages 6 to 8 kits. Do the math, that's 60 to 96 rabbits per year from 2 does. Minimal space, 3 hutches. Each hutch is roughly 3 feet by 3 feet. Stack them if you want. Hang them on a wall if you need to. The footprint is tiny. Rabbit manure is cold manure. It doesn't need to compost. You can apply it directly to gardens. It won't burn plants. It's instant fertilizer. Every day you're producing 2 products, meat and fertility. Quiet food security. Rabbits don't announce themselves, they don't attract attention, and they produce a lot of food from very little input. On half an acre, that's exactly what you need. If you want protein production that fits your space, rabbits are the most efficient choice. Period. Animal 3. Quail. You can produce protein where chickens are illegal. Zoning laws ban chickens in many suburban and semi-rural areas. Noise complaints, smell complaints, neighbor complaints. But quail? Quail are classified as game birds in most jurisdictions, not poultry. And that technicality matters. Why quail win on half an acre? Let's start with speed. 6-week maturity. A quail goes from hatch to laying eggs in 6 weeks. Compare that to chickens, which take 5 to 6 months. You're generating food fast. You're seeing returns while a chicken is still growing. You can raise quail in a dog crate. A wire cage that's 2 feet by 2 feet can house 6 to 8 quail comfortably. Stack those cages vertically and you're producing dozens of quail in the space of a single bookshelf. On half an acre where every square foot matters, that's incredible efficiency. Premium eggs. Quail eggs sell for more than chicken eggs, a lot more. Gourmet markets, high-end restaurants, health-conscious consumers, they all pay premium prices for quail eggs. You're not selling a commodity, you're selling a specialty product. Zone-friendly. This is the big one. In areas where you can't legally keep chickens, you can often keep quail. Check your local regulations, but in most places, quail fall under different rules. They're quieter, they're smaller, and they don't trigger the same restrictions. Vertical stacking. You're not limited by floor space, you're limited by vertical space. Stack cages 3 or 4 high. Use the same footprint to triple or quadruple your production. Quail are photoperiod sensitive. They lay based on light exposure. Give them 14 to 16 hours of light per day, and they'll lay consistently year-round. A simple timer and a light bulb. That's all it takes to keep production high even in winter. You can produce protein where chickens are illegal. That's freedom. That's security. And on half an acre in a restricted area, that might be the difference between having eggs and not having eggs. If this is already changing how you think about space and food, subscribe. We go deeper into each system, because the more you understand which animal fits which situation, the better your homestead becomes. Animal 4. Bees. Here's why bees matter on half an acre. They don't just produce honey, they turn your entire property into a food machine. Let's start with the obvious, honey. A single hive produces 30 to 60 pounds of honey per year. That's sweetener for your family. That's gifts. That's barter. And if you're selling, honey commands premium prices, $10 to $15 per pound at farmers markets. One hive can generate $300 to $600 per year just from honey. Wax. Beeswax is a secondary product that most people overlook. Candles, lip balm, furniture polish. Beeswax sells for $10 to $15 per pound. A productive hive produces several pounds per year. That's additional income on top of honey. But here's where bees become essential: pollination. If you're growing vegetables, fruits, berries, or any flowering crops on your half acre, bees increase your yields dramatically. Studies show that pollinated crops produce 30 to 50% more fruit than unpollinated crops. Think about that. Same plants, same soil, same water, same labor, but 30 to 50% more food just because bees are pollinating. Better fruit set, more cucumbers, more squash, more tomatoes if you're growing open-pollinated varieties, more berries, more apples if you have fruit trees. Bees don't just help your crops, they multiply them. Seed production boost. If you're saving seeds, bees improve seed set and seed quality. Your squash produces more seeds, your peppers produce more seeds, your flowers produce more seeds. Everything increases. Bees turn your entire property into a food machine. One hive doesn't just give you honey, it makes every other food system on your half-acre more productive. That's a multiplier effect you can't get from any other animal. And the daily labor? Minimal. You inspect hives every week or two during active season. You harvest honey once or twice per year. You do some maintenance in spring and fall. That's it. Bees are low-maintenance, high-output animals. On half an acre, bees are non-negotiable. They pay for themselves in honey, and they boost every other system you're running. No other animal does that. Animal 5. Ducks. If you're choosing between chickens and ducks on half an acre, ducks win. Let me explain why. Bigger eggs. Duck eggs are 20 to 30% larger than chicken eggs. They have richer yolks, higher fat content, and they sell for more. A dozen duck eggs typically sells for 1.5 to 2 times the price of chicken eggs. Same effort, higher return. Many duck breeds continue laying through winter when chickens slow down or stop. Khaki Campbells, for example, can produce 250 to 300 eggs per year, with minimal seasonal drop-off. That's consistent production when you need it most. Ducks are foraging machines. They eat slugs, they eat snails, they eat ticks, they eat grubs and insects. If you have a garden on your half-acre, ducks patrol it and eliminate pests. Chickens scratch and destroy plants. Ducks waddle through and eat only the pests. They're less destructive and more beneficial. If you're in an area with high rainfall, wet winters, or muddy conditions, ducks thrive. Chickens get miserable. They stop laying. They get sick. Ducks are designed for water. They handle wet conditions better than any other poultry. For over 1,000 years, rice paddies in Asia integrated ducks into the farming system. Ducks would swim in the paddies during the growing season. They'd eat pest insects, they'd fertilize the water with their manure, and they'd produce eggs and meat while the rice grew. It was a symbiotic system. The ducks didn't compete with the rice, they supported it, they protected it, and they added value without adding work. That same principle applies to half an acre today. Ducks don't just give you eggs and meat, they actively improve your land. They control pests, they fertilize gardens, and they do it while producing premium products. Ducks don't fight your garden, they work for it. That's the difference. Chickens are destructive foragers. Ducks are beneficial foragers. If you're managing half an acre and you need eggs, consider ducks over chickens. They're quieter, they're more productive in certain climates, and they add pest control value that chickens can't match. Animal 6. Fish. Aquaponics. This is the futuristic option, the one that represents the cutting edge of small space food production. And on half an acre, aquaponics makes sense if you're willing to learn the system. Here's how it works. You raise fish in tanks. Tilapia is the most common. Catfish works, trout works in cooler climates. The fish produce waste. That waste is rich in nitrogen and other nutrients. You pump the water from the fish tanks into grow beds where you're growing vegetables, lettuce, herbs, tomatoes, peppers, kale. The plants absorb the nutrients from the fish waste. The water gets filtered and cleaned by the plants and the beneficial bacteria in the grow beds. And then it flows back to the fish tanks, clean, oxygenated, ready to support the fish again. It's a closed loop. Fish feed plants. Plants clean water. Water supports fish, and you harvest both. Why fish belong on half an acre? Protein plus vegetables. One system, minimal footprint. A small aquaponics setup can fit in a greenhouse, a garage, or a corner of your property. You're producing 2 types of food from the same water and the same space. Aquaponics uses 90% less water than traditional soil-based gardening. The water recirculates. You only add water to replace evaporation. In drought-prone areas or places with water restrictions, that's a massive advantage. You're not limited by ground space. Aquaponics systems can be stacked or designed vertically. You can grow more food per square foot than almost any other system. Unlike soil gardens that go dormant in winter, aquaponics keeps producing. The water temperature is controlled, the plants grow under lights if necessary, and the fish keep growing regardless of outside weather. Fresh fish sells at premium prices. Tilapia goes for $6 to $8 per pound live weight. Herbs and lettuce from aquaponics sell for premium prices at farmers markets because they're ultra-fresh and pesticide-free. But here's the caution. Aquaponics has a learning curve. You're managing water chemistry, pH levels, ammonia, nitrites, nitrates, dissolved oxygen, temperature. It's more technical than raising chickens or rabbits. You need to understand the nitrogen cycle, you need to monitor water quality, and you need to balance fish load with plant load. The startup cost is higher too. A small system runs $500 to $2,000 depending on scale and design, but once it's running, the ongoing costs are low. Fish feed, electricity for pumps and aeration, occasional system maintenance. This is best as a focused system. Don't try to run aquaponics alongside 5 other animal systems in your first year. If you're going to do aquaponics, commit to it, learn it, master it, and let it be your primary protein and vegetable source. 2 harvests from 1 footprint, fish and vegetables from the same water. On half an acre where space is limited, that efficiency is hard to beat. Aquaponics represents the future of small space food production. It's not for everyone, but for people who enjoy technical systems and want maximum output from minimal space, it's unbeatable. Now let's talk about what not to raise on half an acre, because knowing what doesn't fit is just as important as knowing what does. Cows. Cows need space, a lot of space. Even miniature breeds need at least 1 to 2 acres of good pasture per animal. On half an acre, you don't have enough forage to sustain a cow. You'd be buying all the feed, and at that point, you're not homesteading, you're running a very expensive pet operation. Cows don't belong on half an acre. Sheep. Sheep are grazers. They need pasture, quality pasture, and they need enough space to rotate grazing areas to prevent parasites. On half an acre, you might be able to keep 2 or 3 sheep, but you'd be managing them intensively. Rotational grazing, supplemental feed, parasite control. It's a lot of work for minimal return. Sheep are better suited to larger acreage. Large pigs. A full-sized pig needs space to root, wallow, and forage. On half an acre, a large pig will destroy your land. They'll root up everything, they'll create mud pits, and they'll produce more manure than you can reasonably manage. If you want pigs, consider smaller heritage breeds, or limit yourself to 1 or 2 feeder pigs raised seasonally. But large-scale pig production doesn't fit half an acre. Too many goats. Goats are versatile. They're great for brush clearing and milk production, but goats are also escape artists. They're loud, and they're destructive if not managed carefully. On half an acre, you might keep 2 or 3 goats, but a herd of 10 or 15? You'll be dealing with constant fencing issues, noise complaints, and overgrazed land. Goats in moderation work. Too many goats create chaos. I'm not shaming anyone who raises these animals. I'm being practical. These animals can work on larger acreage, but on half an acre, they're not the best fit, and choosing them anyway usually leads to frustration. Here's the biggest mistake people make. They try to raise all of these animals at once. Don't do it. Pick one, just one. Master it for 6 to 12 months. Let that system stabilize. Let it start producing. Let it fund the next expansion. Every animal is a different system, different housing, different feed, different health management, different breeding schedules, different processing if you're raising for meat, different markets if you're selling. If you try to learn 6 systems at once, you'll be overwhelmed, you'll make mistakes, and you'll lose money. One animal, 6 to 12 months. That's the rule. If you start with chickens, spend 6 months learning how to keep them healthy, how to maximize egg production, how to manage predators, and how to maintain their housing. Get good at chickens. Then, if you want to expand, add rabbits or quail or bees. If you start with rabbits, spend a year mastering breeding, butchering, and marketing. Understand their health needs, learn how to prevent common diseases, figure out your feed sources and costs. Get confident, then expand. If you start with bees, spend a full season learning how to manage hives, how to prevent swarming, how to harvest honey, and how to prepare hives for winter. One season, one system. Then add another. Here's what happens when you let systems fund expansion. Your first animal starts producing. You sell eggs or meat or honey. That income pays for the infrastructure for the second animal. You're not funding everything out of pocket up front. You're building incrementally, and incremental growth is sustainable growth. Trying to do everything at once is how people burn out. They spend thousands of dollars on infrastructure. They commit to daily labor they can't maintain, and within a year, they're selling everything and quitting. Don't be that person. Pick one animal, master it, let it prove itself, then expand. Think about your specific situation. How much time do you have every day? What's your climate like? What are your zoning restrictions? What's your local market demand? And what are you personally interested in? If you want eggs and you have minimal space, quail or chickens done right. If you want efficient meat production, rabbits. If you want passive income and you're growing food crops, bees. If you're in a wet climate and you want year-round eggs plus pest control, ducks. If you want maximum output from minimal space and you enjoy technical systems, aquaponics. Now I want to hear from you. Which animal fits your half-acre and why? Drop a comment below. Tell me your situation. Tell me your constraints, and tell me which animal makes the most sense for you. I read every comment, and I want to know what you're thinking. Subscribe so you can follow along as we break each one down in depth, because this video is the overview, the big picture, but we're going deeper. Step-by-step guides, cost breakdowns, troubleshooting, marketing strategies, everything you need to succeed with whichever animal you choose. Self-sufficiency isn't about doing more, it's about choosing better. It's not about how many animals you raise, it's not about how much infrastructure you build, it's not about how impressive your homestead looks on social media. It's about calm systems, systems that produce food without consuming all your time, systems that fit your space without overwhelming it, systems that align with your life instead of controlling it. One smart animal beats 5 struggling ones, always. A well-managed rabbit system produces more food with less stress than a chaotic mix of chickens, goats, ducks, and bees that you can barely keep up with. A thriving beehive that boosts your entire garden is more valuable than a dozen neglected animals that drain your energy. Quality beats quantity, focus beats chaos, and calm beats overwhelm. Half an acre is enough, but only if you manage it intentionally. Only if you choose animals that match your space, your time, and your goals. Only if you resist the urge to do everything at once. Start small, master one system, let it stabilize, let it produce, let it fund the next step. That's how you build self-sufficiency that lasts, not with more animals, but with better choices. Next video, we're going even deeper. I'm going to show you the single animal that produces the most food per square foot, the one that almost nobody talks about, the one that could completely change how you think about small space food production. You're going to want to see this. Subscribe if you want systems that actually work, Not systems that look good in theory, not systems based on what everyone else is doing. Systems that fit your life, systems that produce food, systems that make sense on limited land. Hit the bell so you're notified when that video drops, and in the meantime, drop a comment below telling me which animal from today's list you're most interested in. I want to know what resonates with you. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.